The recent violence in parts of the country, but mainly in the Gauteng Province, needs to be characterised differently. This is the view of Cuthbeth Tagwirei, a post-doctoral fellow at the Wits Centre for Diversity Studies. He argues that terms like xenophobia, Afrophobia or criminality need to be removed from discussions. It's only then the real conditions that led to the breakout of violence can be tackled. Well, Cuthbeth joins me in the studio to talk about this further. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Jane.
Tell us about the danger of using terms like xenophobia, Afrophobia.
Yeah, naming conceals a lot of things. So whenever something is named, rest assured that a lot is being concealed in the process. For instance, it is difficult for a single name to capture everything that has happened in South Africa. For instance, when you have a term like xenophobia, it suggests that fear and hatred against African migrants is what is central to whatever activities that are happening.
And it's actually a bigger picture than that.
It's a bigger picture than that. And because we are mainly focused on describing these activities by naming them, we fail to appreciate the complex issues that are at play. So for me, the naming is part of the problem because we are always obsessed with naming things, with labeling and all sorts of things. We end up masking the realities that are happening on the ground.
And is it easy, once you've named something and put it in a box, is it easy then to just push it away and focus on something else?
Partly that, Jane. Also, once we name something, we already anticipate the kinds of solutions that we are going to implement. Already we are suggesting that if we call it xenophobia, then the responses have to be targeted towards what it means to be someone who is against African migrants. When you call it criminality, then we are already pushing the issue to the criminal justice system. We are saying the police have to act, they have to arrest perpetrators, and everything has to be contained in that manner.
So the government seems to be latching onto that word criminality. I know they want to say it's criminality versus xenophobia because it doesn't look good to the outside world that we treat migrants in this sort of fashion. But what are they setting themselves up for by labelling it that?
Yeah, you can sense an apprehension in government corridors. I think since 1994, when the first spate of xenophobic attacks happened, you can tell that the government is so cautious about trying to contain how people are going to define the problem, how people are going to discuss the problem. So from 1994 up until now, you find government officials are always eager to define it as criminality. And it's partly because once you call it xenophobia, you have opened up South Africa to a host of other interests. For instance, African governments, the world, the globe itself will be interested in knowing what is happening, and the solution has moved away from the hands of the government, because once we say it's xenophobia, we are inviting other players to be part of what is happening. This is partly, Jane, why you find there are always reprisals from other African countries once these things happen, because they describe it as xenophobia and they say South Africa is not well equipped to deal with the matter alone, and because it affects African people from other countries, then governments in those countries should also act.
All right. How should we be describing it? Should we be describing it at all, or should we rather be getting down to work and fixing it?
Well, a friend of mine, a professor at UJ, Nyashampoti, has always been willing to define South Africa as a crime scene. And I take that approach as well. When we call it a crime scene, what we are saying is so much is going on, and before we are quick to label and judge and assign labels, what needs to be done is to investigate. We need to have a forensics to gather data and evidence of what is going on, particularly in those spaces where the violence is always happening. Because when you look at it, it's always happening in the same spaces. It never goes to other areas which are affluent and, gated communities and all sorts of other protected areas. It's always in the hotspots like the high-density suburbs, the locations, the informal settlements. That is where it's always happening. So we need to go there and start gathering evidence away from the violent outbursts, because once we focus mainly on the violence that happens,
it's too late.
It's too late. And already we have knee-jerk reactions because we are trying to curtail a problem that is already happening. We need to go back to the basics. What is really happening in South Africa?
Cuthbeth Tagwirei, thank you very much.